The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
In 10 months, 2022, export of electricity stood at $84 million, while import cost was only about $41 million USD, resulting in a positive trade balance of about $44 million. On the one hand, the energy crisis and global price growth of energy products impacted our key export destination, Turkey, where prices tripled. On the other hand, prices on the local market increased much less than that of export. Increased electricity prices on the Turkish market also caused a jump about 3 times in transit volume to 2.1 terawatt in 10 months of 2022. 96.1% of transit was directed to Turkey, out of which 83.5 percentage points came from Azerbaijan and 12.6 percentage points from Russia. The remaining 3.9% of transit went from Russia to Armenia in 10 months of 2022. According to the civil aviation agency, Wizz Air and Turkish Airlines are leaders of the Georgian aviation market by passenger transfer between January and October of this year. These two airlines occupy more than a quarter of the market. The sole Georgian air company, Georgian Airways, occupies 3% of the market. This is the Checkpoints presented to you by Elena Kvanchilashvili, and the Checkpoints team is ready to give you a quick overview of the business and economics week. Glovo's co-founder Sasha Misho visited Georgia and the BMG TV, of course, as the tradition that we have already established that most of the relevant guests of the country that could reflect on global and local business and economics tendencies also visit BMG TV, the only business and economics independent channel in South Caucasus. Today, Glovo represents the service that was the only light during the pandemic and probably the best habit that the pandemic has left us with: deliver everything you need straight to your door. It happened so that Sasha Misho was also on the board of JITA Matching Grant Program, and he shared some of his experience with the Checkpoints. If you're interested in what Glovo's future might be in Georgia and beyond, here is a conversation from the Business Morning Show with Sasha Misho.
Nice to see you.
Nice, thanks for the invitation.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Sasha, let's begin with JITA.
Yeah.
Last week you were on the jury of the JITA Matching Grants Program, and given your vast expertise in startups, how would you rate Georgian startups, and how would they compare to startups from other countries?
So first, I think the JITA initiative is absolutely amazing. As you know, Glovo is in 25 countries, so I visit a lot of the countries, and there's very few initiatives like that that I've seen worldwide. It's 50 startups twice a year. That's 100 startups, 40 win, and actually it's a lot of money. It's 6 million lari. And I think it's a great start for these companies. They're very initial stage. The truth is, startups, most will fail. That's part of the ecosystem, but a few will be trapped in. And there's some interesting projects. And also what's interesting is the founders, very young, are already thinking big, no? So they're not just thinking about the Georgian market. And I think that's a consequence of Georgia's a relatively small country, so anybody thinking of a digital technology business is already thinking where they're going next. So they think of building the prototype, getting it working in Georgia, and then some are thinking more in the region, others are thinking already the US. But I thought 4 or 5 projects that I really liked. It was good to see a lot of women founders, super energetic, passionate, very clever. So let's see.
Mr. Sasha, I would like to continue on the topic. As you know, there is a big problem of attracting international venture capital in Georgia. In addition, there is practically no local VCs in here, and as you know, it's a big problem for startups to create their business plans without VCs. What do you think, in your opinion, what are the factors that prevent the attraction process of venture capital in Georgia?
Well, I think, first of all, I don't know that much about the Georgian market, but it's something I've been here now 3 times.
Yep.
And I've spoke to I spoke to banks, I've spoke to startups, I've spoke to investors. And normally, I think it needs professionalization. So the way VC funding works is not traditional investment. We invest, there's normally, a startup normally needs an initial investment. When the business starts going well, you can have more investment. And there's a road, and it's and outside of Georgia, especially in Europe, in the US, Asia, it's very professional. And to my knowledge, I don't think there is any VC fund in Georgia today. And that's super important. And what I would do is start at the beginning. So I'd create a seed fund here, which is to help startups with initiatives like JITA, accompany them. Any startups showing traction and growing, give them that initiative. Also, the fund, what it could have is contact with funds outside Georgia. So what you do is you find promising startups, you invest here, but you also attract other VC funds to co-invest with you and allow these startups to grow. I think it's needed. The second thing, this is not just around VC funding, but I think entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs, work through role modeling. So I think young Georgian entrepreneurs need Georgian role models. And there's a few out there who've built big companies, some interesting people in the US. I think they need to also come back to Georgia and incentivize young people. It's great people like me, but I'm not Georgian. When somebody sees me, they probably see me as somebody from Europe, a long way away, and maybe I'm not a role model. Role models are amazing for getting young people to really think, I can do that, and I want to do my idea, because if he did it, I can do it. So I think it's a couple of things, but I think definitely, I think Georgia probably needs a VC fund, and also if we look at historical investment on VC funds, they're very profitable, more than real estate, more than traditional investment. It's higher risk, but often you get a higher return on your investment, especially if you spread out amongst 10, 20 startups. Just 2 or 3 of those being very successful will give you incremental on your investment.
Yes, agreed. Based on your experience, what advice would you give to Georgian startups? How should they attract capital and investment from both domestic and international markets?
So I think we talked about it. JITA initiative is very good. I think it's a good place to be. Again, it's 50 startups a year. So, and I think what I always think is focus on one thing. Many of the startups who presented last week, they're doing 2 or 3 different things. And really, you should just focus on one thing, get that right. You can always build the other things. Like, for example, I saw some startups with three revenue streams on different things. Focus on one, and then once you start getting that right, you've plenty of time to put other... For example, if you're growing a community of users, once you have the community built, then you can add incremental revenue on top of that of different initiatives, but don't try and do 2 things at the same time. So focus, doing less things and doing them really well. Maybe building the business, the playbook in Georgia, getting it working in Georgia, and then when you've got that successful, you go to the next countries. Don't expand too quickly when you haven't got the bases right. Surround yourself with great team. It should be co-founders. Don't try and do it yourself. I love companies, maybe 2 or 3 co-founders that complement each other. They're not the same. Extroverts with introverts, techies with non-techies, men with women. Compensation and diversity is very important. And go for it. I've very rarely met a founder, whether the company's been successful or not, who hasn't really learned a lot, and after the experience has been super positive.
Sasha, since we're talking about Georgia, I want to ask you about Glovo here and its future plans for Georgia. So what do you have in mind for the next time?
So we've been here over 4 years. The team, a great job. It's built a very nice business here. We can continue to invest in the country. We started off, as you know, in Tbilisi, so where most of our business is today, but we're also now in 10 other cities and expanding. We have a team of 60 plus here in the offices. Super passionate. They've done an amazing job of building the business. And as you know, Glovo is not just restaurant food. We call it multi-category, which is everything. give everyone easy access to anything in your city. So we connect local stores and restaurants. 90% of those are small businesses, by the way. So that's very important. So we're digitalizing small businesses. And I think we see potential to grow, and especially in what we call Q-commerce, which is quick commerce. And I believe that quick commerce is going to be one of the fastest growing segments of e-commerce. So, 10 years ago, I was happy to receive something in 10 days. 5 years ago, it was the same week. The last few years, it's been in 48 hours, 24 hours, but Glovo, what it does, it brings it to you in 30 minutes. And that's quick commerce. So you'll always have quick commerce where you buy something from very far away, but sometimes you want something immediately. And especially, now we're multitasking all the time with our mobile phones. Now we want everything now. And that's quick commerce for me. And that's everything which is non-restaurant food, retail, from pharmacy to electronics to textile. And that's going to be the fastest growing segment, I think, of our industry in the next 10 years. And Glovo's very lucky because we did that from day one. We've been multi-category. So we didn't start with restaurant food. We started always with everything in your city and the magic button in the middle where you can get everything you want. So I think that's going to be the future growth of our business. Groceries, anything that helps consumers get anything they want.
Sasha, Georgia is a very small country geographically and population-wise, market-wise. So given all this, how good of a country is it for Glovo? How fastly did you expand here during the last, 4 years? And in general, what do you think about Georgia as a market?
Well, Georgia, first of all, is a small country, but that has advantages. For example, it's a lot easier to cover the whole country. Also, you can execute much quicker, so it has certain advantages. It has a limit. There's only X amount of population, so I always say that the worst thing about Georgia is, there's only a small population here. There's not enough Georgians. But anyway, so it's been a great business for us. We're growing 40% year on year, so we're very, very excited about the growth. And I think it has potential to expand, not just to additional cities, but also what I was mentioning earlier, to other segments. So where the other groceries, activating local stores, get them activated. We've just launched Glovo Local, which is an initiative which specifically allows small businesses to digitalize themselves, but not only on our app, they can actually build their own website and sell. We can just give them the logistics side so they can just do delivery. They can use their own delivery. It's a plug and play where small businesses can actually choose which tools to use and use them. It can also help them with marketing. So until today, retail businesses didn't have the tools to market to their own customers. So it actually gives them the tools to run their own marketing campaigns, have access to their own customers, so they can actually speak to their own customers instead of just through Glovo. So it's a plug and play initiative that we think is the future of retail digital businesses, because more and more that's the fastest growing segment of most of them. The customers walking into the stores are X amount, but the digital side of their business, what they're building on social media, on their own websites, is growing much quicker.
Mr. Sasha, based on your international experience, how favorable is Georgian gig economy and regulatory framework for companies with a business plan similar to yours?
Yeah, Georgia typically has always been business friendly. I think you've transmitted that as a country internationally. And I think it's well renowned that Georgia is a friendly place to work, to do business, and to set initiatives up. And the JITA initiative is one example. It's a government, but also I've had a lot of meetings with stakeholders over the last 3 visits that I've had over the last 4 years, and it's always been positive and always been supportive of companies like Glovo. I think Glovo is an example of other companies to come here. The good thing about us is we're not in the cloud, in the sense we're not a social media site that doesn't need to put people here, and we're local. We have 60 employees in the office. We have a customer support center. We're local employees. We have over close to 5,000 partners on our app, local stores and restaurants and chains. But also we have close to 5,000 active couriers. Those are the yellow bags that we see in the street. And so we're part of the ecosystem. And I think the feedback we've had is we've been very appreciative of us being here and investing in the local market.
Last year, there were some reports about Glovo going IPO, but then it was postponed. So what are your plans going public in regards of Glovo, or it's still postponed after your merge with German company?
So it's been postponed. It's probably been cancelled because Delivery Hero, we're now part of the Delivery Hero family. We're at the end of last year, which they acquired the majority of the company, and they're already a public company. So
there's no need after that.
There's no need. I mean, it was something we were aspiring to,
Okay.
But we looked at the road to going public, and it was going to be very difficult.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's complicated. Also, I've been in 2 public companies, and it's not that much fun. Oscar, the other founder, you know, he's younger than me, and he hadn't seen that. But once you go public, you're reporting every quarter. Yeah. The mentality of the company changes because numbers are super important. And Delivery Hero, we're already a major shareholder of Glovo. We know the CEO and the management team incredible. Has our vision, shares our vision as well. And we thought it made a lot more sense to work with them. It gives us guarantees now. The next 2 years, Glovo can push to be profitable in 2015. And also, we didn't coincide in any markets. So, you know, we're in Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, we're in this region, we're in Central Asia, and we're also in Africa. These are regions that Glovo can expand in and invest in. And very excited, very excited.
Great. Thank you so much, Sasha, visiting us. And thank you for your interview and for your talk. Hope your next visit to Georgia is going to be in the same spirit and mood.
Of course. I love this place.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sasha Misho.
More about this week's Business Wire from our reporter Natia Taktakishvili right now.
Gote Gabrichidze, the founder of the Restaurateurs Association, declares that the remuneration of employees in the restaurant business has increased over 2-fold, although the sector still suffers from a shortage of personnel. Gabrichidze notes that the increase in wages and, on the other hand, hyperinflation significantly increased the price of the final product. Prices of ingredients as well as utility bills are increasing so fast that we cannot manage the updated menu. In some cases, the price has even increased twice compared to the previous year. As for the expectations, the sector assumes that we will surpass 2019, said Gabrichidze. According to him, in order to find suitable personnel, the sector will hold an employment forum at Tbilisi Technical University on December 9. Nika Kevkhishvili, the managing partner of the Shinwood project located in Saguramo, declares that the demand for the land plots outside the city and construction of private houses has increased significantly. According to Kevkhishvili, the price of land per square meter has increased by 20% in the project in the last 5 months, and at this stage it varies from $42 USD to $67 USD. Shinwood project offers the customers land plots prepared with all kinds of communication. The project is located on 35 hectares and includes a recreational area, sidewalks, a fence and a gate. Our project is located in the one city of Saguramo in the village of Akhatani. We started sales in June and the pace is much higher than we had planned. This means that the market is ready for the product that we offer. We sell land plots ready for construction with all kinds of communication, central sewage system. We build roads, sidewalks and recreational spaces in the internal territory, which is 31,000 square meters. Plots are sold with fences and gates, which helps to maintain the overall appearance, said Kevkhishvili. 80% of rooms in Hotel Lahili located in Mestia have already been booked for the new year. As the founder of Hotel Levan Dadvani explains, this is the effect caused by the weakening of the pandemic. According to him, there was a 20-25% increase in hotel room prices this year. Average price for a standard double room with breakfast stood at 250 gelari in December 2021, while now its price amounts to 300 gelari in the same period this year, said Levan Dadwani. As the founder of the Hotel Notes today, the main problem in Swaneti remains the natural gas, which hinders business development. Heating in Swaneti is made with electricity because there is no gas supply. Mining has increased here in recent years and electrical wiring cannot withstand this load, as a result of which electricity was often cut off last year. Since this season has not started yet, the electricity supply is normal, but I don't know what will happen during the season. We installed a generator to prevent this problem, Dadwani said. A new space of Your Royal House and Cloud9 Gallery was opened in Axis Towers, where brands with many years of history, quality and outstanding design are presented. Your Royal House combines kitchen and cooking items of European brands. Most of our brands serve the HoReCa sector. There was a demand from customers to buy good quality products. That's why we decided to bring HoReCa sector brands for retail as well. Before we took over the retail market, we had several private orders from families who heard about the quality of these products. Co-founder Eric Kazakhstein said, currently the share of retail sales has increased to 20-25%. In the case of mattresses, the number of individual orders has also increased. We partner with factories and make mattresses of any shape and size for customers, says Temur Tawadze, co-founder of the company. The first store of Your Royal House was opened in 2015 and offers Georgia customers exclusively European items of more than 100 brands. In addition to new space in Axis Towers, the collections can be purchased in the Galleria Tbilisi store. A medical wellness and entertainment recreation complex, Nunisi Forest Hotel and Spa, located in the northern eastern part of Borjomi-Kharagauli National Park, declares that the complex awaits road rehabilitation for 20 years. According to Irma Daushvili, co-founder of the complex, the infrastructure around the forest is one of the challenges. As she says, rehabilitation of 28-kilometer road section has not been carried out for years, which complicates the business process. According to her, uninterrupted electricity supply and issue of gasification still remain the main challenges in the region. Exactly 20 years have passed since our company owns Nunisi. We came as enthusiastic young people in Kharagauli district to develop this resort. We think we have contributed, but it's not what we ultimately wanted to do. To date, the access road to the resort is 28 kilometers from Chumateleti turn. There is a bad road, but the road of Nunisi is the worst. It's also important that in all regions we still have same problems with unstable electricity supply. There is no gasification in Nunisi. The largest expenditure for tourist development is utility bills. If you don't have gas, these costs increase a lot, says Irma Daushvili, co-founder of Nunisi Forest Hotel. Biofood, which produces various types of fruit porridges at the enterprise located in Zestaponi, will start processing fruit snacks in the near future. The founder of the company, Zviad Grzeliadze, told BMG about this and noted that the test samples have already been brought to the market, which resulted in quite positive feedback. According to the information, they are currently waiting for the arrival of the necessary equipment, after which production of new products will go into an active phase. Now we are waiting for the equipment. After their arrival, we will start production of new products. There will be snacks made of processed fruits, which will be packed in 50-gram packages. Our fruit porridges are also sold in Carrefour, Goodwill, Fresco, Universum chains, said Zviad Grzeliadze. Biofood was created in 2012 with the personal investment of the founder of 200,000 gelari and a grant of 30,000 gelari from JITA. The company currently employs 90 people, although their number increases in summer, and after the start of production of new products, Biofood plans to hire 5 persons in addition. General Director of Nicora, Irakli Bokolishvili, declares that the company will launch a new meat product processing plant equipped with modern equipment in late 2023. According to him, the construction of the new factory started this year and the company is investing 30 million GLR for its implementation. It has been 5 months since we started construction of a new meat product factory. It will be a high-standard factory. I think there is no meat processing plant of this level in Eastern Europe either. Construction has started and the factory should be operational by the end of the next year. We are talking about the production of sausages and other types of meat products. In order, we will invest 30 million GLR for this project, Bokolishvili said. The first raw vegan cafe Umi was opened on Shavteli Street in Tbilisi over a year ago. As its co-founder Salome Kalandadze says, the main goal was to share the secret of maintaining health and energy with people. There is no raw vegan food cafe in Georgia. We are the first. This method is gaining a foothold in Europe and is directly related to human health, skin, hair quality, regulation of sleep patterns and treatment of disease. The main goal was to share with people the benefits of this nutrition. We don't have a pan and a pot in the kitchen, only a blender, says Salome Kalandadze. The co-founder of UMI says that 90% of customers are foreign tourists from whom it's very pleasant news that they have the opportunity to use a similar service in Georgia. As for the investment in the creation of the cafe, according to her, everything started at home with zero investment. At first, we prepared everything at home. When the money came in, we returned it and slowly moved forward. A year ago, with the help of Shark Tank, we received co-financing of 70,000 GLR and expanded. UMI currently employs about 15 people. It can accommodate up to 30 guests in the cafe, and the cost of the meals varies from 15 GLR to 14 GLR.
This week, Georgia's FinTech Association presented some findings from the USAID and GFSIS joint study on global FinTech best practices. What are some competitive advantages of Georgian FinTech companies? Our reporter and analyst Georgia Aronia tried to find out for the checkpoints.
Along with the world's ongoing technological advancement, financial technology companies, also known as fintechs, are becoming more and more prominent entities. This affects not only the diversity of technological startups, which in the case of Georgia is indisputable, but also the level of readiness of the regulators. One could consider the report prepared by the Rondelli Foundation and USAID and presented by the FinTech Association of Georgia last week as the prime example of such a synergy.
With collaboration of Rondelli Fund and financing of USAID, we elaborate the findings of the best international practices regarding to fintech regulation. Our team, we worked approximately 4 months in past period, and we have identified approximately 15 best fintech regulation countries, which have maybe by our opinion most flexible environment for fintech development. We hope that our document will be a very good basis for the implementation of further regulations for the National Bank of Georgia and other regulators, and we hope our opinion, our findings will be very useful for NBG, and it will be, as I mentioned, it will be a very good basis for the further development of fintech in Georgia and regulations as well.
We appreciate a lot all the research and papers that are done on this topic. Fintech is on the top of the agenda for National Bank of Georgia. It's also on the top of the agenda of the government. It requires joint effort and unified policy for the fintech sector to develop most efficiently. We will definitely use and benefit from the research that has been done. It has identified certain on trends and directions that will be helpful to develop in Georgia. It also analyzes the good practice in other countries, and the more such papers we have, it's also, of course, beneficial for us, not only from the intellectual perspective for discussions, but also to base our policy in these reforms. As you know, National Bank of Georgia has very active fintech agenda. Our policy is based on several directions. So one pillar, we have increased our regional and international cooperation. We're also opening to the best we can the local market for the new entrants, and a good example of this is digital banking framework, for example. We also have standardized and unified the basic infrastructure. That's usually a bottleneck for the new entrants. A good example of this is open banking, where the tech companies and fintech companies will be able to distribute banking products through their own channels without the banking license.
Georgia, despite its small size and limited market, is quite saturated with tech and fintech startups. There is a very efficient and flexible banking system too. This is somewhat paradoxical because fintech companies usually appear and develop in countries where the banking sector is relatively bureaucratic and slow. This was one of the topics I discussed with the founders of the leading Georgian fintech companies, Kernel and Qualifica, who talked about the competitive advantages of Georgian fintech and open banking.
In terms of advantage that generally startups have over any kind of big corporations, especially in finance, is that they can move fast and they can make some mistakes that they can also improve on. So compared to the banks, they can direct their efforts to solving extremely narrow problems of the customers, of the niche customers, which banks address more widely. As I said, as they can move really fast, and as open banking is kicking in, I see more potential for cooperation between fintechs and banks, also because of the size of the market, rather than competition. So this is what I foresee for the banking sector and the fintech, more collaborative future, I would say.
Open banking was introduced in 2015, and the first countries was in Europe. And at that moment, European countries were not so proud of having very developed technological banks, and that's why it gave push for the smaller startups, smaller fintechs to develop some companies like Klarna. Stripe was in US, but similar like ADN, etc. And at the same time, Georgia is also following this path, and I think bringing fintech initiatives like open banking principles will be changing, but I can see that big competition will be occurring in Georgia coming from fintechs to the banks, because in Georgia banks are very developed into technologies.
Georgia could pride itself on a developed banking industry and booming fintech ecosystem, which of course gives rise to healthy competition between the two. This in turn creates additional opportunities for Georgian startups that expand to the outside markets. The research published by the Rondelli Foundation indicates that processes in the tech industry concern and interest the regulator too.
ICC Georgia re-elected Fadi Asli as its chairman this week. The Checkpoints extends its congratulations to Mr. Asli and wishes him and the ICC further success. Meanwhile, the Checkpoints talked to Mr. Asli about the state of Georgia's economy and prospects. Let us start with the double-digit growth and Fadi Asli's evaluation of current figures.
10% economic growth is normal when we are flooded with funds coming from Russia, and with Russians coming here and Ukrainians and Belarusians opening companies, hiring, developing their business because they're just escaping their countries. So 10% is a normal figure, and I believe that we will have 10%. But where we disagree with the government is about why we are having this growth. They're saying that it is thanks to their very wise economic policies. It's not thanks to their wise economic policies. It is a lotto ticket that won for Georgia because all those guys are coming and transferring their funds. You know, if I'm not mistaken, up till now, about $1.2 billion have been transferred this year from Russia to Georgia, which is like more than the whole amount of foreign remittances that we had 3-4 years ago. So this gives you an idea why the economy is growing. And to put things into perspective, to give you an example, you know, in Armenia, they're going to have 13% growth this year. At a time before the war, they were expecting 1.7% growth. So, and this is what the National Bank of Armenia said, that they were expecting 1.7% growth, and they're going to have 13% growth thanks to the influx of Russians into Armenia. So, but at least the Armenians, they had the decency to acknowledge the reason for the increase in economic growth. Having said that, this is very good for the country. I mean, the longer it goes, the better it will be, because it will create more jobs. It will increase the power of purchasing power of the people. You know, I mean, the key is to increase the economic growth. But having said that, we cannot rely only on this. Because what if tomorrow the peace is signed between Ukraine and Russia and the hostilities stop? All those guys will go back. This means we will be back to where we were in 2020.
Here is what the ICC Georgia chairman believes is the main challenge of the country's economy.
It's trust. You know, there is no trust. No one trusts anybody. Neither, you know, the Georgians don't trust each other. The opposition doesn't trust the government doesn't trust the opposition. Investors don't trust the government. So we have a very serious problem of trust. And unless we reverse the trend and people start trusting each other, there will never be a proper economic growth in the country and proper development of the country. You know, you cannot build a country on hatred. Everyone hates everyone else. You cannot build a country based on hatred. This hatred needs to stop. So, you know, there is a serious problem of trust. And, you know, foreign investors don't want to touch Georgia anymore. I'm not speaking of the Russians who are coming because they have no other way to go. But I'm speaking of serious foreign investors. No one wants to touch Georgia. For 10 years, they have been, you know, attacked by the government, not protected by the government. Their residencies were cancelled or were denied. You know, you cannot work in an environment like this environment.
Next, Fadi Asli's analysis on what is the main approach of the government to tackle the challenges.
Main approach of this government is a social approach. Why a social approach? Which is not a bad thing, I mean, to take care of social issues. But they should not be the only things that are developed and invested in, because this government has never come with a strategy or with a policy that serves the interest of the country. They come with a policy that is self-serving, their own interests. What can keep them in power the longest period possible? Of course, if you subsidize the grapes and you subsidize the apples and the citrus, all the farmers will be voting for you, but you are weakening the country because you are encouraging people to grow things that lose money, where they are not competitive. And this is what the government is doing. Then when you come with sterile social programs, you borrow money from abroad and you spend them on punctual social programs. Of course, people will be happy. Okay, I mean, if you subsidize their medicine or give them money every month so they stay at home, of course they will be happy. But you are drowning the country in debts. So I have nothing against social programs, but they should be part of the bigger picture. They shouldn't be the bigger picture themselves because they help the government to stay in power because everyone is happy, everyone is. It's like you have a child, and you know, you give this child all the time candies so that he doesn't cry, okay? Yes, he doesn't cry and he loves you because you give him ice cream and candies. But what kind of health is he going to have in 10 years? He's going to be diabetic, sick all the time, and this is exactly what the government is doing.
What could make savings grow in Georgia? Here's Fadi Asli's take on the issue.
First of all, I think that the lari will remain at the level it is. I mean, it will not change dramatically because still we are receiving remittances. Now, the danger for the lari will be if those remittances will slow down. The export will not increase very much, but the imports will keep on increasing. Then the trade balance will be very big. And those foreign remittances will not be enough, and the exports and foreign remittances will not be enough to offset the difference in the trade balance. Today we are about, up till last month, I think we were minus $6 billion. Minus. This means that we have to cover those minus. From where do you cover them? You cover them from the foreign remittances that are coming. You cover them from the exports, and you cover them from FDI, foreign direct investment. There is no FDI coming, very little, okay? I mean, except those Russians that are putting money here in Georgia. Foreign remittances can stop anytime or decrease anytime, okay? And if they decrease, then definitely we might have a more demand on the dollar than we have now, and this will increase the price of the lari will devalue, okay? So this is the danger, but I don't see this happening immediately. Now regarding inflation, we have two factors. One factor is international. It is due to the supply, the break in the supply chain, okay? The problems of the supply chain after the COVID. Yes, the prices went up dramatically, and this has affected inflation everywhere. But we have our own internal inflation that is due to those Russians who are coming here and other, Ukrainians, Belarusians, and they are creating a very big demand on things. And this is increasing the prices. Like the price of rent has increased by 70% since the beginning of the year. 70%, which is, pardon?
In Turkey, the inflation
yes. So the demand on the goods, on the food, because we have 200,000-300,000 more people in no time here. This is increasing also the prices up. Now, inflation from outside could be controlled and it can decrease because there is a kind of it's stabilizing somehow. But the inflation that is due to organic reasons inside, this is more difficult to control because it's a big load in a very short period of time. So although the National Bank says that they believe that inflation will go down to 3% or 3.5% by the end of 2023, I'm not as sure as they are.
How to improve human capital? Here's Fadi Asli's take on the issue.
That's a real problem. I mean, many Georgians have left Georgia. I mean, as far as I understand, like hundreds of thousands have left. Okay, maybe this year I heard 100,000 of people have left, which is a terrible number. This means that people, when people leave their country, they don't leave their country only because of economic hardship. They leave their country because they don't believe in the future of their country. And this is the most dangerous thing. So you need to keep the people here. To keep the people here, you need investors. You need investments, because they are the ones who employ people, investors. And then the salaries will grow. So we need to open up for investments. We need to create political stability. We need to have a national reconciliation where people believe that their country can move forward. It's not going to be this kind of hatred and polarization between groups of people in the country. And today what I have noticed is that we have already immigrant workers here. I order from Glovo every day. And the last few days I saw Indian guys working for Glovo, and it was very surprising for me. But this means that there is a real shortage of workers here, and in case the trend continues like this, even investors will not come here anymore because, if they cannot find labor, then they will not invest in the country, you see? So the government really has to stop this wave of emigration from Georgia by giving hope to people, by keeping him, by opening for investors the doors wide open, so people can find decent salaries, because it's a matter of offer and demand. The more demand you have on the workforce, the higher the salaries will be. And, Georgians always say we are losing our culture. If you don't want to lose your culture, then do something that people don't emigrate. Because the Georgians who emigrate, they stay abroad for 10 years, then they come here with a Western culture, okay? And they are the ones who are changing the culture because they have been exposed to another culture.
And finally, some projections and outlooks from the largest chamber of commerce in Georgia on the strength of lari and inflation.
When there is stability, and there is political stability, internal and external, the lari would remain stable. When the lari is stable, people would save in laris. But when there is political instability, people would be worried to save in lari. They prefer to keep their money in foreign currency. So this is one. Two, I believe that the most important thing to do is to develop a stock market here. Okay, that's the most important thing to do. Now, people keep their money in the banks, and the banks are, lending this money. But if people would have access to the stock market, that we have a modern and a vibrant stock market, then people would not keep their money in the bank to get 2% and 3%. They will move the economy by investing in the local stock market here, in the local companies that are listed. So I believe that this is a very important thing to develop as a matter of fact, but there is a conflict of interest because the banks don't want to develop a stock market because then the people will not put their money in the bank. They will be investing in the stock market, okay? And the owners of the stock market today are the Georgian banks. So they are killing the stock market on purpose because there is a conflict of interest.
Let us now summarize the week in economy. Natia Taktakishvili pulled together this week's economic news and outlook.
Irakli Garibashvili, Prime Minister of Georgia, held the Economic Council meeting. The meeting, held within the government administration, was concentrated on the positive economic trends witnessed in the country and discussion of plans for the future. Council members reviewed the development of new travel destinations, which is actively pursued by the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia under the instructions of the Prime Minister of Georgia. It was noted that increased volume of international visitors is essential for the economic advancement and stimulation of growth in the country. Development of travel destinations, including the spa resorts, becomes particularly important towards this end. Funds in the value of 200 million GLR have been allocated from the state budget for the development of infrastructure for new travel destinations in the country. Tax on companies of Georgia's financial sector will be set at 20% instead of 50%, with taxation of banks and other entities no longer set to be switched to Estonian tax model, Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili announced on Monday. Banks will pay income tax according to the International Financial Accounting Reporting Standards, which was not the case before, he noted. Of course, we appreciate the role of banks in the growth of the economy. It's extremely important that we have a very developed banking system with two large banks. Bank of Georgia and TBC Bank are on the London Stock Exchange. Of course, we will continue to support them in the future, but these are small adjustments we have made in the legislation. Irakli Garibashvili said. The PM also revealed tax benefits for individuals employed in the agriculture sector and agricultural cooperatives would be extended to 2026. The Georgian government has revealed plans for a new ropeway that will serve 1,800 passengers per hour in the country's northern Gudauri ski resort, Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili said on Monday. Speaking at the weekly government meeting, the PM said the new cable car would reach the length of 2,800 meters on the slopes of the location. He also noted installation of snow-making machines was also planned on 2 tracks in the resort to ensure a more comfortable environment for holidaymakers during a lack of precipitation. Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili on Monday said this year's fruit harvest was expected to hit about 45,000 tons of citrus, adding that the government would subsidize collection of non-starter tangerines. This week, the regional government of Adjara also announced state authorities would co-finance collection of a kilogram of industrial tangerines with 15 tetri, with enterprises paying 5 tetri. The regional government also said enterprises would start accepting non-starter tangerines in the coming days. Garibashvili today said more than 20 enterprises would accept and process tangerines designed for export from the year's harvest. The typical citrus season runs from November to January in the western Adjara and Guria regions. In Q3 2022, compared to the same period of the year, the volume of business turnover increased by 70.4% and amounted to 47.5 billion GLR, according to the preliminary data from the National Statistics Office of Georgia. As of the document, in Q3, the trade sector, including repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles, has the highest share in the total turnover in the business sectors, followed by arts, entertainment and recreation, manufacturing, construction, transportation and shortage, electricity, gas, steam and air conditioning supply and other sectors. According to Geocert, in 3 quarters, 61.7% of total turnover comes on large and 70.5% on medium businesses, while 21.8% is distributed to small business. Irakli Garibashvili, Prime Minister of Georgia, met executive of the APM terminals on Wednesday. Potential of Poti Port and increased interest towards the Middle Corridor was discussed at the meeting. Focus was made on the development and advancement of maritime infrastructure at Poti Port, acquiring special importance against the background of rising volume of international shipments of cargo. Representatives of APM terminals expressed readiness to make more investments and to modernize the existing infrastructure. Discussion was also related to the possible future expansion of Poti Port. Meeting held within the government administration was attended by Juan der Essen, Regional Director of APM Terminals for Europe and Africa, Julian Fernandez, Director General of APM Terminals Poti, Georgian. Attendees included Leman Davitashvili, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development. Irakli Garibashvili, Prime Minister of Georgia, stated at the executive government meeting that jobs created in Q3 of 2022 increased by 45,000 and reached 722,000, which is a record high indicator. I wish to move to another agenda item of the meeting and state at the outset that the National Statistics Office of Georgia released its most recent data a few days ago. Economic growth indicator is reported to have reached 10% in January-October, and I also wish to note that gross revenue increased by 70% in the private sector, thus reaching 47 billion gelari. It's the outcome of our prudent policies. I wish to call on business again, as they know that their no revenues may increase in a country without stability and peace. No employment and new jobs are created without stability and peace. Country could have been turned into a war zone. In addition, you may well be aware that the number of jobs has increased and employment opportunities have reached a record high indicator. Private sector created 45,000 new jobs in Q3 and reached 722,000, which is a truly record high number, noted Prime Minister of Georgia.
And back to business. Today we will tell you about the company Klein & Pantzulaia, KP, which backs its 17-year experience on another firm also based on the CIS market and recently expanded into other markets such as the US, Armenia and UAE. Specializing mainly in commercial law, KP aims to provide Western standard best practices to its clients, including Western compliance practices and Western standard response practices at very reasonable costs. More in the checkpoints.
For Georgia and Armenia to join the Western family of countries, economic integration of their industries and laws is of utmost importance. It is one of the reasons why new law firm appeared simultaneously in the Georgian and Armenian markets. Klein & Pantzulaia and Klein & Iskandarian are pioneer law firms combining forces of local and Western lawyers. This enables the companies to provide Western standard best practices to their clients at very reasonable costs.
We have two law firms, as you mentioned, and we see an opportunity where we don't believe that there are other law firms actually operating in both markets. That might be the case, but just focusing on these two markets, we don't see that. We are unique in both markets because we are a foreign-owned partnered with local attorneys, so that's unique, and it's a unique point for example, American companies, come American, where they want the assurance that they're going to get American quality service with local attorney knowledge, and that's very important. We've done this before in other markets, and it's been very, very successful. So we think it'll be very successful here.
Klein & Pantzulaia and Klein & Iskandarian specialize in all aspects of commercial law, including customs and product certification, real estate services, venture capital, private equity, M&A, patent licensing, employment and immigration. One of the reasons for the establishment of these companies in Georgian and Armenian markets is the recent rise in the number of locally registered Western IT companies. Yet Klein & Pantzulaia and Klein & Iskandarian work with the FMCG industry as well as the oil and gas industry. As Daniel Klein claims, there is no limitation to the areas of the law or the industries.
We've opened up two offices, Klein & Pantzulaia in Georgia and Klein & Iskandarian in Armenia. We see an upside for our businesses both in both countries, and legal practices, especially from a company that is a mix of both the Western and American legal experience and the local experience. So we have a mix of U.S. Georgian and U.S. Armenian experience, which will, I think, add up to the overall portfolio of the company and help us to establish ourselves in extremely competitive market that we have both in Georgia and Armenia in legal services. But of course, we're looking forward to success in our businesses in both regions, and we're looking forward to working with Western companies, whether it's from the U.S., North America, outside Europe, inside Europe, regional-wise, and also with all the transitions that we have right now, companies relocating and also helping out other companies, startups, as well as established corporate entities. So we're really looking forward to doing business in Georgia and in Armenia.
We are dealing with foreign companies for their legal issues and everything else what can be somehow connected with a law. So I'm dealing with Armenia, my colleagues are dealing with Georgia, and the founder is Daniel Klein, and we are very proud to announce that we are setting up our company in Caucasus. So we are unique in that in that meaning.
The founders of the newly established law firms are onto something unique. Given that no other law firms are operating simultaneously in Georgia, Armenia and Western countries, there is an enormous opportunity for Klein and Pantzulaya and Klein and Iskandarian in the Caucasus region.
And that's all for today. We will meet next Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp. Before that, follow us on Forbes.g and BM.g for updates on business and economics in Georgia and beyond. See you soon.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.